Welcome back, committee members. Welcome back, members of the public. We'll be bringing before us today House File 217. Representative Hassan has joined us, the chief author. I do want to note that there are 3 amendments that have been provided the committee for this bill. We will be acting on all 3 amendments today. So I know that testifiers were given certain time limits for their presentation. I would ask that you focus your statements. We've got limited time, but we do want to hear from you. But we want to hear from all of you, which requires folks to be focused on your testimony and hold to no more than the time allotted and less if you can, so that we can work through these, the bill and the amendments. Representative Marquardt, would you like to make the motion to move House File 217 to be before the committee and laid over for possible inclusion or for further consideration at a later date?
Mr. Chair, I will make that motion.
Thank you very much, Representative Marquardt. With that, Representative Hassan, welcome to the committee. Please state your name for the record. Please introduce your bill. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. Today we have Today I present you with House File 217, an act relating to education, strengthening the Increase Teachers of Color Act, seeking to increase the percentage of teachers of color and American Indian teachers in Minnesota, requiring reports, appropriating money, and amending several Minnesota statutes. This bill includes a variety of provisions aimed at attracting and preparing more teachers of color and Indigenous teachers, increasing the percentage who complete preparation programs, and increasing the percentage that remain in the teaching profession, with the goal of helping the state to meet its goal of providing all students with equitable access to effective and diverse teachers who reflected the diversity of their students. Before I have Mr. Paul Spies do a walkthrough of the bill, I wanted to share a personal story to shed a light on the importance of having teachers of color and American Indian teachers in our classrooms. As some of you might know, my family and I fled from war to come to this country as refugees. Upon our arrival, I realized my worldview has changed overnight. Imagine a 10-year-old who grew up thinking the world was Black, arriving in Jacksonville, Florida, where almost everyone was white. What a cultural shock. My sibling and I were enrolled in public school, and besides my ELL teacher, Mrs. Lee, I had no teachers of color until my freshman year in college. Professor Johnson, who taught interpersonal communication. If I was able, I would have taken Professor Johnson's course over and over throughout my college experience, as the impact he has made in my life was profound. For the first time, someone dared to talk about systemic racism, oppression, and the criminalization of Black people in America. My whole public educational experience has been with some passionate educators who neither understood my culture nor my struggle about how I came to this country, and others who were joy killers, who continuously reminded me how I would never amount to anything. I have been told over and over not to waste my money, as college was not for me. My survival depended on my family's support, which was plenty. Both my parents were believers of education being the key to lead a successful and productive life. Thank God for that.
Thank you, Representative Hassan. Dr. Spies, please introduce yourself for the record and proceed.
Good morning, Chair Davney and members. My name is Paul Spies, Legislative Action Team Lead with the Coalition to Increase Teachers of Color and American Indian Teachers in Minnesota. I'm going to share my screen. I'd like to thank you for hearing this bill so early in session, making it one of your priorities. Can you affirm that you can see?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. So this is the 5th version of the Increased Teacher of Color Act. It combines our last 2 years' proposals and strengthens some of the language. We also included 4 sections from the governor's policy bill last year. There are 3 main objectives to reach the main goal of increasing the percentage of teachers of color. So it's a comprehensive bill that with interconnected proposals needed to move the needle. Running through the bill sections, Section 1 amends the world's best workforce by adding some key definitions. Section 2 clarifies what district plans should include and strengthens what those district plans would include. Section 3 makes alignment between the district advisory committee recommendations and subdivision 2 for the strategic plans for World's Best Workforce. Section 4, equitable school enhancement grants. These would support the districts implementing World's Best Workforce. And I just wanted to mention that I forgot a couple slides ago, in the lower left-hand corner of the screen, you see those dots for those key objectives for increasing preparation, increasing retention, and increasing program completion. So you see the purpose of each section in those dots. Section 5 addresses the state goal and accountability report that we've been proposing for years. Section 6 and 7 are two of the policies from the governor's policy bill last year that we've included on curriculum policy and state model policy. Sections 8 and 9 address licensure statutes to attract Toka'it from outside of Minnesota. Section 10 addresses the licensure testing to remove barriers for white and Toka'it program completers. Section 11 and 12 amends tenure statutes to attract Toka'it from outside of the state. Section 13 is the Come Teach in Minnesota Hiring Bonuses pilot program that we originally proposed in 2019 and for which those previous amendments would help address. Section 14 and 15 make some tweaks to the administration of the Collaborative Urban Greater Minnesota Educator of Color program. Section 16 expands the types of Grow Your Own programs that would be possible for grant funding in the state. Section 17 amends the Teacher Mentorship and Retention Grant program. I would just like to say that we would agree that Amendment 8 that was posted would be an acceptable amendment to the coalition. Section 18 addresses principal evaluation statute from the governor's bill last year. Section 19 addresses the governor's policy bill again in terms of allowing Native American students to wear tribal regalia at graduation. And another example, like the World's Best Workforce, of key policy language to help increase Toka'it retention and attract more BIPOC people into the profession are amendments to the Achievement Integration Program statute. So as a finance committee, here's the overview of the requested appropriations. We understand that there's uncertainty around the budget and everybody's awaiting for the forecast coming up. But we note here in our appropriations request that this amount is just 0.2% of total E12 budget. And we appreciate as much as possible that you can support this effort. So with that, that's the overrun of the bill. I'll take questions later. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Dr. Spees. Next, first, I'd like to note that Representative Drazkowski has joined the committee today for the hearing. Next, I have Howie Emeru, a student at Minneapolis South High School. Mr. Emeru, welcome to the committee. Please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair.
Oh, Ms. My apologies, ma'am.
It's okay. Good morning, Chair Dabney and members. My name is Howie Emeru. I'm a South High 10th grader in Minneapolis. I grew up in Ethiopia with teachers watching over me like a family would. I came to the US when I was 10. For the most part, I was nervous and scared about speaking English. My first attempt of being bold and speaking to my teacher with the little English I knew was to ask to go to the toilet. And my teacher looked at me as if I was speaking an alien language. After that, I stopped speaking to my teachers completely. And I was rewarded for being respectful because I was quiet. I remember how my teachers targeted my classmate who was Black American, spending half an hour of class talking about how much of a bad kid he was for the way he talked and the way he wore his pants slightly down from his hips. I just stayed quiet because I had not met racism. Not yet. In 6 years of attending school in the US, I have not had a teacher of color. In middle school, I remember my white teacher making a racist statement saying to the whole class, "White kids are smarter than you because they were born here." This was my exposure to racism in school. I had respected him. At a young age, I was taught to respect older people because they had wisdom, but he was just racist. We need teachers who understand firsthand different cultures and who see our potential for all we youths have to offer the world. We need more role models in our school who look like us and speak our home languages. You say the future of our world belongs to the youth. Then shouldn't we be treated as such with love and care? If not, how would our future look like? I ask you to adopt the full funding request for the Increased Teacher of Color Act because my peers and I don't have access to teachers who reflect our diversity. Please pass this bill to make a better future for all students of color in Minnesota. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Emeru. Next, Angelica Turalba-Ulagu, a teacher also from Minneapolis South High School. Welcome to the committee. Please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Dabney and committee members. My name is Angelica Turalba-Ulagu. I grew up in Southside Minneapolis. I graduated from Minneapolis Public Schools, and I've come back as an ESL teacher at South High School. As an immigrant and former EL student, I have the lived experience of what my students are going through in the education system. I understand the language barriers, the cultural differences, and the limited navigational skills that prevent many of our students and families from fully participating in classes, conferences, and school events. They've told me that sharing my own experiences as an EL student helped them to become more confident and gave them a voice. I've been called Abayo by our Somali families, and my Spanish-speaking students have called me Tia. This is a big honor because our EL students are highly relational. Many have been separated from their family members, and they strongly value their extended families. We need more ESL teachers who come from immigrant backgrounds. We need more teachers of color who can teach content and also be that cultural bridge for our students. Many of my students, including white students, say I'm the first teacher of color they've had. The impact that teachers of color have is profound across the board. By having more of us, we would send an important message that people of color can hold positions of authority. We would break many stereotypes that hold many BIPOC people down. In order to increase more teachers of color, we must prioritize and fully fund the spending proposals in this bill. We need to expand funding for the collaborative urban education programs throughout the state. This program made it possible for me to earn my ESL license after I already earned my bachelor's degree. We need to expand Grow Your Own programs for non-licensed staff to earn their bachelor's degree and their teaching license. I've worked with bilingual educators, behavior support staff, special education assistants who would make excellent teachers and are interested in pursuing it, but they've needed the financial resources to make this happen. We need to start at even a younger age to create a pipeline of teachers, candidates of color. Just before the pandemic, about a year ago, South High students planned a walkout. They asked for many things, and one of their main asks was for more teachers of color. My BIPOC colleagues and I have been advocating to make this happen for them. Next year, in partnership with Minneapolis College, our students will be able to take concurrent enrollment classes, which will give them hiring preferences for Minneapolis public school jobs. If we're serious about having more students of color attend college, we need to put resources and financial support to make that happen. Lastly, more funding for teacher mentorship and retention grants is important. For teachers of color, it is not enough to just recruit us. It is often very difficult working in predominantly white spaces with institutional policies and practices that are not designed for us, creating a hostile work environment, which too often pushes us out of the profession. After the tragedy of George Floyd in our school's neighborhood, our BIPOC staff at South High started an affinity group. This space provides collective mentoring, support. I probably wouldn't be up here today providing this testimony had it not been for my BIPOC affinity mentoring group. It shouldn't take for us to have a national racial reckoning to get support that teachers of color have been asking for. Again, I'm urging you for support to fully fund the Increased Teachers of Color Act to ensure our state and school districts will follow suit with recruitment, preparation, and retention of teachers of color. Please remember that you're not only looking at a teacher, but you're also looking at a teacher delivering a message from her students. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Turalba Alagi. Next, we have Kadra Aden, an East Program Scholar and teacher candidate at Augsburg College. Welcome to the committee. Please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Stephanie, and members. My name is Kadra Aden. I am currently teaching 4th grade at Minnesota Math and Science Academy. My choice to become a teacher was not made lightly. This decision was not easy, but it was a reflection of what I wanted to do with my life. I have chosen a career in education because I believe that it is one of the most important functions performed in our culture. I believe that teachers, individually and collectively, have the ability to not only change the world, but also to improve it. I want to be part of a noble profession with the hope that one day being counted among those whom future teachers find inspiration. I want my students to learn in a safe and comfortable environment so that their self-esteem will be increased. Being an Easter scholar has made it possible for me to become a teacher. Being the daughter of immigrant household is not an easy task. It required tremendous amount of responsibility. The financial benefit of this program helped me to relieve this stress. However, it was the support that kept me going. As I went through the program, I always had people in my corner that supported me and validated my experience as a person of color in a white-dominated field. Thank you so much for financially supporting this program. It has changed my life and many others. I really hope the community provides even more financial support so that more candidates like me can be supported in becoming K-12 teachers, because our kids need more diversity in our classroom. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Aden. Next testifier, Mr. Larry McKenzie, Interim Director of Pillsbury United Communities, Office of Public Charter Schools. Mr. McKenzie, welcome to the committee. Please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Larry McKenzie, and thank you, Mr. Chair and member of the committee. Good morning. I am here this morning proudly to speak on behalf of my 4 young, gifted, and Black granddaughters, Kyla, Lauren, Maya, Olivia, and the 9,000 students that I represent as part of Pillsbury United Communities Public Charter Schools. I'm here this morning to ask you to not only support the bill, but to truly invest in the next generation. For far too long, Black and brown kids have had to look out the window to see what a classroom teacher looked like. I'm here this morning to ask you to give those kids mirrors, people to look at that look like themselves. Our kids, even in the state of Minnesota, need to know that America is truly a rainbow that includes Native Americans, Asian Americans, Black, and brown. And so again, I'm asking you this morning to support this bill so that our children can stop looking out the window and have mirrors that reflect people that look like themselves. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McKenzie. Last testifier in this section of the hearing, Dr. Michael Favor, Assistant Superintendent, Roseville Area Schools. Dr. Favor, please introduce yourself for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Michael Favor, Assistant Superintendent here in Roseville, not too far from you. I'm going to give you a perspective, building on the words and the comments of Larry McKenzie. As a young man growing up in North Minneapolis, I use athletics as a way to uplift and provide me with opportunities, as a way to impact the community, which was always my dream, to be a member of the North community and have a significant impact. Sponsoring and supporting this bill, especially in the time of the arrest of George Floyd, speaks to what's possible. And what I'm saying about what's possible, there is a window of opportunity for our young people here who can look at the possibility of being an educator, to have an impact, a significant impact in a productive way on lives and the community by becoming a teacher. The expansion of the Way to Grow program and also the expectations around principal evaluation and working closely and amending and growing the world's best workforce, I believe will have a significant impact, and not only just of achievement, but what's possible in our communities. Right now, this window of opportunity where people want to be allies in this work, people want systemic change, and that change comes through education and the opportunity to become teachers to support our communities. Really quick, I was the interim superintendent in Monticello, Minnesota. And the ability for not just students of color that are there, but white students to see an impact that a person of color can have is significant. I appreciate your time and this opportunity to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Favor. Members, the committee will now like to hear from anyone in the public who wishes to testify regarding House File 217. When this hearing was posted, the public was provided with instructions on how to sign up to testify during the public portion of the hearing. We'll proceed to hearing from those individuals who signed up. A note for members and the public, there's quite a bit of written testimony that has been posted to the committee webpage. Thank you for those who wrote letters in lieu of live testimony. Again, ask testifiers to be brief and focused and concise, let's say, in your testimony. Ms. Macbee, please introduce yourself for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Hi, can you all hear me okay?
We can. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Chair and members, my name is Johanna Macbee. I'm currently a junior at Washburn High School. I've had 2 teachers of color in my entire schooling career, one in middle school and one in high school. Growing up with brown skin in a society where everything revolves around whiteness, even your education, is damaging, confusing, and traumatizing. I remember when I was 7 years old, I had grown to hate my skin and body with every inch of my soul, partly because of my experiences at school. And then came the phase that many Black children go through. Then came the question my mom hoped she'd never have to hear from me. Is there a way to lighten my skin? Like bleach? My mom talked about an imaginary procedure. She talked about it like it was the most painful thing to ever experience, and that it's really not worth it. That my skin was beautiful just the way it was. And of course, I believed her. But still, there was this feeling of estrangement. That feeling has stayed with me till this day. At school, I know I don't belong. How could I belong when my ancestors' existence in history books is short and brief? When my peers are surprised at how eloquently I speak? For when a teacher who looks like me teaching AP is rare? When a student looks like me taking IB is rare? When having darker skin makes you both invisible and a target at the same time in a space full of white students? When you're expected to fail, so don't even try? When they assume your capability is lower and theirs higher? When your humanity is questioned? Passing this bill to increase teachers of color shouldn't be in speculation. Everything proposed is a necessity long overdue. A bill centered around love and healing and community shouldn't create controversy. I know that passing this bill will not only begin systemic change, but also internal emotional change within students. I know that if 7-year-old me would have had a teacher of color to look up to, maybe she would have looked in the mirror and seen beauty, and maybe she would have seen a future educator. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Rizzal Egatan from Cloquet Middle School. Please introduce yourself for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Dabney and members of the House Education and Finance Committee. And good morning. My name is Rizzal Egatan. I'm in 8th grade and go to Cloquet Middle School. I currently live in Fond du Lac, northern Minnesota. Something interesting about my education, I had 3 Ojibwe teachers in my elementary experience. My kindergarten, 2nd, and 3rd grade teachers, that is. Those teachers made me feel at home. They were kind and forgiving. Maybe one of the most important skills a teacher could have to me, the latter. I learned from them, and more than I think I would have without them. We started required things, including math, reading, English, etc. But I also got to learn about my Ojibwe ancestors and what they did. That's something that's not taught very often. And that's one example of what I gained from 3 teachers just being Ojibwe. I can guarantee all of you, somewhere out there right now, there's a person who could become a perfect teacher and give a kid or a class an education to light up their purposes. They could give their students a home, like how my teachers did. But because that person who could become a teacher is a person of color, we'll never know how. We'll never get a chance to help a student struggling through school and life. I believe that could change. I believe that the Increased Teachers of Color Act could help that person out there with the gift of teaching. And I believe that one day a kid could find a home in a classroom like I did. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you very much for yours. Next, Shannon Gescheck from the Minnesota Indian Affairs Council. Ms. Gescheck, please introduce yourself for the record and proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. My name is Shannon Gescheck. I am a citizen of the Boy Sport Band of Chippewa and serve as the Executive Director at the Minnesota Indian Affairs Council. Today, I also speak on behalf of the 3 ethnic councils and MIAC in strong support of the 2021 Increased Teachers of Color Act, House File 217. Since 2017, the councils have been united on the effort to systemically address the persistent shortage of teachers of color and American Indian teachers in the state of Minnesota. Our communities continue to endure the impacts of structural and systemic challenges that have only been exacerbated by COVID-19 pandemic. Addressing the severe shortage is key to narrowing our state's persistent opportunity and achievement gaps, which disproportionately impact our constituent communities and tribal nations. We are pleased that dozens of education organizations have expressed their endorsement despite having strong disagreements on other pieces of legislation. While we appreciate investments made over the previous biennia by the legislature in programs included in this bill, the data provided by the Tokate Coalition clearly highlights the need of greater investment to meet the demand of teacher candidates of color and American Indian candidates. Research and data are clear and consistent. All students, including students of color and American Indian students, benefit from diverse teachers. In order for our great state to move forward in seriously addressing the egregious inequities that have contributed to the educational gaps, targeted and sustained investments in Grow Your Own programs, the Collaborative Urban and Greater Minnesota Educator of Color program, and teacher mentorship and retention programs help recruit, hire, and retain teachers who reflect the increasingly diverse student population in the classroom. We appreciate Chair Dabney's leadership in prioritizing the hearing of this bill and Representative Hassan's leadership in serving as its lead author. We strongly recommend that your committee fully support the 2021 Increased Teachers of Color Act. Miigwech. Thank you for your leadership in doing what is right for all students in Minnesota.
Thank you, Ms. Gescheck. Mr. Anderson, Stillwater Area Schools, please introduce yourself for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Good morning. My name is Eric Anderson, and I'm a licensed school counselor. I'm grateful to Representative Hassan, Chair Dabney, and to all of you on the Education Finance Committee for your tireless efforts and for this opportunity to share an important truth. In the fall of 1998, my first year in public education, I was collaborating with one of my high school juniors, Jackson, about his results on an interest inventory in which teacher had risen to the top. When I shared these results, I was met with a look of bewilderment, and his matter-of-fact response, which he shared with a sense of certainty, still haunts me to this day. He said, "Mr. A, teaching is not for Black kids." How could this be? This student was successful academically, was a student athlete, was a leader in the school's peer counseling program, and was respected by students and staff alike. And yet, at that point, after spending 12 years in Stillwater area public schools, Jackson had never had a teacher of color in any of his classrooms. We can and we must do better. One of the many strengths of HF 217 is that it speaks truth to the fact that representation matters and shares concrete data to make the case. It also is solution-focused with goals that support local districts in developing viable institutional systems and structures that unapologetically prioritize diversifying our teaching staff. All of our students benefit when this outcome is achieved. We can and we must do better. Good work is happening across the state. The Increasing Teacher of Color Act has the potential to be an anchor in continuing this important work.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Next, we have Abdul, parent advocate. And Ms. Abdul, I understand that you provided written testimony to the committee. If that's the case, I'd ask you to keep your comments brief because we do have that written testimony as well. Please introduce yourself for the record and proceed.
Okay, good. Thank you so much. I wasn't able to see myself. First, I want to thank your staff. I am so not technology savvy, and Brittany has been helping me, so I appreciate that so much.
Wonderful.
Mr. Chair and members, good morning. Many thanks for the opportunity to testify and speak for my son and so many others like him. My name is Abdul. I also would like to take a moment, if I may, and thank Representative Hassan for wanting to ensure our kids succeed in school. I'm in full support of House File 2017. Students are like blank pages. What fills those pages is what their teacher writes on it. Therefore, it is crucial that we have teachers who are in this profession for the right reasons. That is to foster, care, and mold young, impressionable minds. As I've said in this committee, last session, the session before that, and other education committees in the House and Senate, my son, who has nonverbal autism, was suspended on May 3rd at 5:18 p.m. in 2018 by a white female teacher, Kelly Morris, and Principal Jason Anderson in Jefferson High School, which I know you went to, Mr. Chair, in Bloomington Public Schools. And I often wonder if Kelly and Jason reflected my kid, would the outcome have been different? If Kelly was a teacher of color, would she have seen a child who's autistic and was having a behavior and didn't have his communication device, and instead of calling the principal security? And I know I only have a minute left. Thank you, Sarah. So I'm just going to summarize it and say, because of that experience, I took my kid to a charter school. His teacher is Somali. Most of the kids are Somalis. And I'm stress-free. Like, I'm not pissed off all the time right now. I'm not worried. And I think there's a difference. Like, I've seen so many people here, so many young kids testify. We need teachers to reflect the students, because it really does matter. It really does matter. And it matters to me. And I hope you read for your pleasure the articles and the research that I've gathered. And I thank you again for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Abdul. Thank you for the written testimony as well. That'll be helpful. Thank you all who testified today. We appreciate your engagement. We do have amendments. We have one coded A1 who brings forward this amendment.
Thank you, Chair Dabney. This is Representative Damath, and I have the A1 amendment.
Representative Damath moves the A1 amendment to be before the committee. Keep in mind, please, Representative, that this bill is being laid over, and we do have to adjourn no later than noon.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you to Rep. Hassan for bringing this bill forward. Also, thank you to each one of the testifiers, those that chose to be here in person with us, and then also those that submitted written testimony. The A1 amendment under current law, section 122A.16, defines anyone holding a valid license, which would include Tier 1 and Tier 2 license, as being a qualified teacher. Yet PELSB distinguishes only Tier 3 and Tier 4 as professional licenses. Given the percentage of Tier 1 and Tier 2 teachers who are educators of color,
It is simply an insult to refer or view their contributions to the classroom instruction as anything other than professional. So the A1 amendment defines professional license to include licenses issued for tiers 1, 2, 3, and 4. And that is my amendment, Mr. Chair. I would request a roll call.
Thank you, Representative Damath. Representative Hassan to the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Rep. Damath, for this amendment. I will just say for the record, this bill is not ready for prime time. There's a lot of work that needs to be done. And as I have said in ed policy, I'll say it again, that I am open to working everyone and making sure that the bill is impactful. So at this time, I will decline to accept this amendment, but I'm open to working with Rep. Damath and others to continue to make this bill better. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Hassan. I appreciate your willingness to work collaboratively with other members. Ms. Sunderland, please take the roll.
Chair Dabney.
Chair votes no.
Vice Chair Sandsted.
No.
Representative Kresha.
Kresha votes aye.
Representative Bennett.
Aye.
Representative Daniels.
Daniels votes aye.
Representative Damath.
Aye.
Representative Drazkowski.
Aye.
Representative Erickson.
Aye.
Representative Feist.
No.
Representative Jordan.
No.
Representative Marquardt.
Marquardt, no.
Representative Mueller.
Mueller, aye.
Representative Richardson.
No.
Representative Thompson is excused. Representative Wolgamott.
No.
Representative Zhang.
No.
Representative Joachim.
No.
With 9 noes, it does not pass.
The motion does not prevail. How many ayes, Ms. Sunderland?
7.
Thank you very much. We have an A2 amendment. Whose amendment is that?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is Representative Damath, and I would like to offer the A2 amendment. And I would request a roll call.
Representative Damath moves the A2 amendment. Representative Damath, to your amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We know only 5% of tier 3 or 4 teachers are identified as teachers of color versus 21% of the tier 1 and 2 teachers. Yet the law requires school districts to first try to hire from a pool of educators that is only 5% teachers of color or Indigenous. Therefore, the current law effectively requires districts to try to hire an educator that is probably white before they can consider hiring a teacher of color. So the A2 amendment repeals the current law requirement for schools to post and try to hire a tier 2, 3, or 4 licensed teacher before hiring a tier 1 licensed teacher or seeking to renew an existing tier 1 license. And with that, Mr. Chair, that is the A2 amendment.
Thank you very much. Representative Hassan to the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would again decline this amendment as well. We're looking at quality versus quantity. I would hate to fall into the trap of we're in dire need of teachers of color and American Indian teachers, so we're gonna hire teachers who don't have qualifications and don't have the resources to be effective at their work. When we hire teachers of color and American Indian teachers, as well as other teachers, we wanna make sure that these teachers have the qualification and they have the respect of their colleagues and they can effectively make an impact on those young people. So I will respectfully decline this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Hassan. Ms. Sunderland, please take the roll.
Chair Dabney.
Chair votes no.
Vice Chair Sandsted.
Sandsted, no.
Representative Kresha.
Kresha votes aye.
Representative Bennett.
Aye.
Representative Daniels.
Daniels votes aye.
Representative Damath.
Aye.
Representative Drazkowski.
Aye.
Representative Erickson.
Erickson votes aye.
Representative Feist.
No.
Representative Jordan.
Jordan, no.
Representative Marquardt.
Marquardt, no.
Representative Mueller.
Miller votes aye.
Representative Richardson.
No.
Representative Thompson is excused. Representative Wolgamott.
No.
Representative Zhang.
No.
Representative Uakim.
No. Finance.
We have 9 nays and 7 yeas.
Thank you, Ms. Sunderland. The motion does not prevail. Representative Damath, I'm going to guess that the A3 is yours.
That is correct, Mr. Chair. I would like to offer the A3 amendment and request a roll call.
Representative Damath moves the A3 amendment before the committee. Representative Damath, to your amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In virtually every discussion that we have, including those testimonies heard before the Select Committee on Racial Justice, advocates from communities of color highlighted that policies commonly referred to as last in and first out have a negative effect and impact on educators of color. Minnesota has the distinction, as we've heard in this committee already this year, for a number of Teachers of the Year being dismissed because their hiring date was more important than their value or quality as a teacher in the classroom. Ending this outdated, quality-blind practice for teacher retention will have a positive impact to plugging the holes in our system that push too many teachers of color out of our classroom. And so with that, Mr. Chair, the A3 amendment prohibits the use of seniority in the hiring or dismissal of a teacher and requires districts to report all new teacher hires and terminations, including layoffs, by race and ethnicity. And that is my A3 amendment. I would like to request the roll call.
Thank you, Representative Damath. Representative Hassan to the A3 amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And again, thank you, Rep. Damath. This is at least one that we somewhat agree. I also think that not only hiring is important, that retention is also important. And I am working with advocates, and I invite you to work with us to, make sure that, last one in and is the first one out policy can be reformed. At this time, I would decline this amendment, but I invite you to work with us because I'm working with many different groups of people. I even have, legal team looking at this, but I will not accept the amendment at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Hassan. Ms. Sunderland, please take the roll.
Chair Dabney.
Dabney votes no.
Vice Chair Sandsted.
Sandsted, no.
Representative Kresha.
Kresha, aye.
Representative Bennett.
Aye.
Representative Daniels.
Aye.
Representative Damath.
Damath votes aye.
Representative Drazkowski.
Drazkowski, aye.
Representative Erickson.
Erickson, aye.
Representative Feist.
No.
Representative Jordan.
Jordan, no.
Representative Marquardt.
Marquardt, no.
Representative Mueller.
Miller votes aye.
Representative Richardson.
No.
Representative Thompson is excused. Representative Wolgamott.
No.
Representative Zhang.
No.
Representative Uakim.
No.
With 9 nays and we have 7 yeas.
Thank you, Ms. Sunderland. The A3, the Damath motion for the A3 amendment does not prevail. Representative Hassan, any closing comments?
I know we're right under that at noon, so I'll just say thank you for giving me the time to talk about this issue that's extremely important, and I want to thank all the testifiers.
Representative Hassan, thank you for that. Thank you for bringing this important bill before us. To all the testifiers, particularly the members of the public who chose to participate today, either by submitting written testimony or testifying with the committee this morning, thank you very much for your engagement. With that, members, the Marquardt motion that House File 217 be laid over for possible inclusion. Thank you very much. We are adjourned.